Hi guys, Mr. Pease here, and we're on to week 7, lesson 3. The big focus is developing and deepening your understanding of the text before the consolidation and creativity task tomorrow. This marks the end of this half term, in which case you're going to have a opportunity to showcase one of your fantastic pieces of writing that you've produced over this unit and get that copy sent across by email to your teacher or submit it on Show My Homework for them to have a look at. Okay? So, without further ado, session 3 development. So we're going to develop and delve more into that brilliant poem, Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. So, things to note about Maya Angelou. She had a very, very rich and varied and challenging life in many different ways, and had to face enormous amounts of difficulties, which in many ways inspired the power and confidence expressed in her poem Still I Rise. Really, it's an anthem to being resilient in the face of personal challenge and difficulty, and being able to maintain your own strength and self-belief, even when life presents you with seemingly unconquerable challenges. Okay, first of all, introduce you to two words yesterday. So if you could pause the video here, sassiness was one, hatefulness was another. Can you just briefly try and write down from memory what those words mean? If that glorious knowledge doesn't immediately come to mind, probably a good idea to make a cheeky word web to help you remember them. Definition in the middle, example sentence, synonyms on the left, antonyms on the right. Really help consolidate that knowledge. As a reminder, sassiness means rude and disrespectful, self-confident, but also means lively and spirited, i.e. her sassiness made her fun to be around. She was loud, positive, and oh so confident. Hatefulness, on the other hand, full of or expressing hate, malignant, malevolent, a hateful denunciatory speech. So a very negative word, a very difficult word in many respects. He uttered all his hatefulness in a vile speech that offends the audience. It's not the type of speech people want to be using, really. Okay, so I'm going to read the poem, then I'm going to go back to the little icons and images that I've got on both slides here, okay? Remember, this is a section of the poem, not the faux poem itself. So I'm just going to read it to you, then just zoom in on a couple of the images to focus on a couple of little bits that you probably do know, but there's no harm in reminding you. So, Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I'll rise. Okay, I'm going to go back a slide now and just focus on a couple of bits, just in case you didn't know. I'm pretty sure you probably did, but oil wells, okay, in stanza 2 there. Oil wells are used to drop oil from the Earth's surface, from under the Earth's surface, and actually oil has been the most expensive and valuable source of energy for over 50 years. That's really high value in society. Tides are caused because of the rise and fall of sea levels due to the Earth's rotation and gravitational force of the moon and the sun. Things to note relevant to the poem: tides never stop, they are unceasing. High tide, low tide, ad infinitum and carrying on. Okay, on to the second slide of the poem now, gold mines. Things to note, a bit like oil wells, gold mines are deep underground mines where people extract gold. And of course, gold is one of the world's most expensive materials and highly sought after. So interesting simile choices by Angelou there, comparing something about herself to oil wells and something about herself to gold mines. Okay, hinge question. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to briefly pause the video and have a look at these 4 statements. Pick one answer that you think is the most accurate description of the poem. 1. This poem was about being scared. 2. This poem was about staying strong in the face of hatred. 3. This poem was about the importance of believing in yourself. Or 4. This poem was about worrying what other people think. So just pause it there and decide. Reread the poem if you need to, clarify your view. Okay. If you pick sentences 2 or 3, You are closest to the message of the poem. Well done. If you picked them, the poet's message is to believe in yourself and do not give in to others' hatred. So it's about staying strong in the face of hate. It's also about that belief in yourself as a way to remain strong. Okay. So simile. We've probably heard of that before. Often students write it smiley by accident, thinking they've written simile. So poems often include similes, and a simile is where a comparison is made using the word like or as, an example being as quiet as a mouse. So if you pause the video now and complete the task, can you identify and write down, wherever you make your notes, 2 similes from the poem Still I Rise? Okay, so here are the ones you could have picked. But still like dust I'll rise, 'cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Shoulders falling down like teardrops, 'cause I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard, but still like air I'll rise. Okay? All of those excellent similes. The thing is about similes though, is that, they're quite easy to create and they're quite easy to identify. But actually, the most important part of the simile is the comparison itself, as in what is the poet comparing the thing to? So when analysing a simile, you want to ask yourself the following questions. What is the poet comparing? What is the poet comparing it to? Why do you think they have done this? And so I'll just walk you through an example of how I might go about this process. So I've chosen a particular simile that I think is excellent from the poem. Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. So what is the poet comparing? Which is the first part before the word like or as comes into play. The poet is comparing her walk. And then what is the poet comparing it to? She is comparing her walk to being like oil wells. Sounds peculiar, eh? And then what you have to think about is why might the poet have chosen that particular comparison? Because actually oil wells, whilst they pump up and down so can vaguely resemble walking, they don't have much association with legs. So I feel like there's something else going on here. So why do you think they have done this? Because oil wells are used to pump oil up, a high value resource. So you're suggesting her work also is worth something and is valuable to her. She's emphasizing that she has a value and it reflects her confidence in this belief. If she said something like, because I walk like I've got pockets full of stones, it sort of becomes a little bit negative, like she's burdened in some way. Because it's oil wells, we've got that sense of wealth, we've got that sense of positive attachment to the walk, which suggests and exudes a sense of her confidence. All right. So with that in mind, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to go back to the poem. I'd like you to have those 3 root questions in mind. Write 2 similes from the poem in your book and annotate them using the following prompt questions. 1, what is the poet comparing? 2, what is the poet comparing it to? And 3, why do you think they have done this? Possible choices there: the gold mine simile, the like air simile, shoulders falling down like teardrops simile, like dust simile. Okay, what's the possible reasoning behind it? All right. Okay, so I hope this beginning to think about why the writer has made certain choices as a writer. Okay. So if all of that has taken you less than 30 minutes, or you just want to be a language ninja, you want to carry on with the tasks. And the next task is about moving from notes on a poem to being able to write something more meaningful about a poem and more developed. Okay, so delving into meaning. A student said, this poem is so inspiring because it shows how important self-belief and confidence are in life. With them, we can overcome anything. How far do you agree? So your task is to answer the above question using the following sentence prompt. So wherever I've written anything in red, copy that down, okay? With the exception of the stuff in brackets. Agree or disagree, that's what you put in the gaps, in the lines that I've left for you to develop those ideas, okay? Don't write the frame first. Sometimes students do that, and they don't have actually enough space to write what they want to in the gaps. The gaps are indicative, but they're not actually all the space you might need. You might need more. All right, so it starts with you focusing on the question, whether you agree or disagree with the student statement, but also qualifying that with that great conjunction because to explain why you agree or disagree with that statement. Then you prove that by saying the writer uses by exploring a method. It makes sense to use one of the similes that you've already written about and turn that into a more developed point of view. When she writes, you see I've got speech marks there, that's where you add your quote from the text that you're going to use. Then you summarize, which suggests what the quote means or what the quote is basically saying. After that, you start a new sentence, and this is where you zoom into language in a bit more detail to really pull apart what the writer is trying to achieve. The words are particularly effective because they suggest, so you add one or two words from the quote you've already used. And then at the end, you begin to link to what the writer's striving to achieve. The writer has done this in order to think about the poet's big ideas in the poem, okay? When you develop and finish that paragraph off. All right, guys. So that's lesson 3. Things to remember. Coming up in tomorrow's lesson is that choice. There's not going to be a quiz this week because it's all going to be about choosing the story that you want to submit to your teacher that gets put into a creative writing competition in which there will be some winners. So take care of yourselves. Lovely to work with you.